Well, hi, everybody. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach, and I want to welcome you to Soul Empowerment. Today, we are embarking on episode number 36, and today's topic is something that everybody loves to talk about. I'm sure it's all about coming up for the holidays. You know what's going on in the holidays. And I know that for many people, it can be a stressful time. You know, imagining this idea of navigating the holiday tensions of being in a family setting where everybody kind of has to be on their best behavior and things often don't work out that way. And so what happens is we end up, having a lot of apprehension and fear and nervousness about going to these events anyway. But you know what? Today we're going to talk about that. We're going to have some fun with it. And hopefully we'll share some tips that you can take with you and maybe have a better holiday than you've had in the past. So without any further chit chat, I want to introduce my co-hosts, and I'm going to call on you the way you arrived today. And so, Sarah, I'm going to ask you to just introduce yourself, tell us a bit about what you do, where you're located, and why you love doing soul empowerment.
Hello, I'm Sarah Jane, but you can call me Sarah. I'm based in the UK, if the accent didn't give it away. And I'm a complementary health therapist, alternative health therapist. I work with Reiki and sound energy and Indian head massage and ear candling. And I just love working with people. I love supporting people. The sound energy is what I call vocal Reiki, and it's very much supporting people to help and heal the inner child. And I think actually there's going to be aspects of our topic today that potentially could sort of actually link into if we've had a stressful Christmas as a child, and if we've just witnessed stressful Christmases as children, we expect Christmas to be stressful. It can be learned behavior thing too. And I love sharing on soul empowerment. I really do, because I love supporting people to potentially think about things slightly differently, to get rid of that box and be open to other ways of thinking about things. Plus the fact, obviously, with the beautiful people I'm sharing with here, we all have different perceptions, different understandings of words and meanings of things. And so we may be all saying the same thing, but come across slightly differently, which can help many people, to have an understanding rather than just a few that are on the same wavelength. So that's one of the reasons I love doing soul empowerment. And thank you for inviting me to be part of it.
Oh, you're most welcome, and I'm so glad you're here. I always love your perspective, Sarah. You always bring up subjects that help me to think of things in a different way. So I'm grateful for that. And also my other good friend, Christy Borst. Christy, please introduce yourself. Tell us about what you do and where you're located and so forth.
Thank you, David. Hi, Sarah. So my name is Christy Borst, and I'm an intuitive spiritual energy healer. And the way that I work is that I am somewhat of an emotional transducer. So I'm able to help people release stuck emotions and trapped trauma that can be stuck in the body, thus blocking the natural healing abilities of the body, or just those, self-limiting programs that have been set in motion for generations of our bloodline. I'm physically situated in Wells, Maine, which is about an hour from Boston, but I work worldwide via this wonderful internet. And do I get to say why I love soul?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love soul empowerment because I think that essentially that's why we're each here, is to become more and more empowered in our own presence, in our own self-permission to be ourselves without filters, without beliefs that hold us back. And in this way, I believe we're lifting one another. So that's why I love to share.
Beautiful. And I heard you use the phrase emotional transducer. That's a new one. I haven't heard you use that one before. So it made me think, so you basically plug yourself into people's circuits and allow the energy to flow again.
Yes, and I also do that just um, as a resource for humanity. You know,
That's great.
there's been times when I felt really, really down or sad, and I
Mhm.
don't watch the news, but I'll, say to my husband when he comes home, "So did something happen today?" And he'll say, "Yes, XYZ," and I know that I've been called to help, you know, remediate, I guess, some of that trauma. So,
Right.
that's
That's great. Yeah, yeah. And just so everybody knows, one of our co-hosts, Nancy Stevens, is unfortunately able to make it today because she is, I guess, she's traveling through the mountains right now, and through some bad weather, so she wasn't able to adjust her schedule to be here. So consequently, we're not going to see her today. We'll see her next month. So I want to get right into this. Oh, and before I go any further, I want to just say welcome to those who are here on the live presentation. Thank you for being here. If you want to share your perspective, please feel free to just put your questions or comments or anything else that you like into the chat, and we'll do our best to respond to that as we proceed. So I want to just dive in. Now, Sarah, you said something that during your self-introduction that I thought was interesting, talking about um, learned behaviors as children. If you had a bad Christmas or a bad experience with Christmas, then you may be carrying that with you. Talk a little bit about that and share maybe your own experience with Christmas and where that thought came from.
I think it's the understanding that we have learned behaviors for me.
Mm-hmm.
And those learned behaviors, parents say to us, do as I say, not as I do. But what do we all learn? We learn by copying what our parents, our siblings, our friends at school, we learn by copying what people do, not by listening necessarily to what they say in some things. In other things, we absolutely are listening, and we think that's the way to speak to people. Again, that's another learned behavior, but we don't listen to those words, do as I say, not as I do. And I think it is about learned behaviors. And so if you've Christmas after Christmas witnessed frustrations in families, then you're going to be expecting frustrations in Christmas. Well, not just Christmas, in your Thanksgiving, in Easter, in any other holiday that there is. Anything
Right.
that you've witnessed in those big family get-togethers, and that could just be birthdays. If you witness that stress, and I think it's not until you actually become an adult that you see how much work goes into putting these get-togethers together.
Right.
And the bigger the family, the more work there is to do. And actually trying to put a cooked meal together for a huge number of people is stressful. It doesn't matter how much help you've got.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think it is a matter of just, for me, witnessing. What do I remember from my childhood? I mean, I've shared this before. I have few memories of my childhood. The one thing I do remember is that my grandfather's birthday, my mum's dad, was Boxing Day, so the day after Christmas. And so Christmas was a big family thing for us, especially as my mum's parents, for a period of time, lived in a flat within the house that we had. So they were literally on the doorstep. They were inside the front door. And so they were with us. And it was great. And we always used to play a particular game of cards. And I remember those as being fun. But that was towards the end of the day when all that preparation stuff, etc., was over.
Right.
And I think it's realizing that there can be a lot of stress about the organizing of those things. And we do witness this as children. Will you get out of the kitchen? Will you get out of the way? I'm busy. I've got things to do. And Christmas for children, holidays for children, the whole idea is to try and make them fun. And the problem is, for some adults, they're not fun.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Christy, how about you? Did you have experiences like that when you were a kid?
So I think the thing that's probably coming up for me is maybe more of a sense of disappointment. Longing for things to be a certain way, or to maybe receive that special gift that you've asked for, and it didn't happen, or um, I think the thing that came up when Sarah was talking is a point that I had wanted to make, and it's just keeps coming to me. So I'm going to maybe jump off that question a little bit. But I think when we've experienced things or family dynamics, again and again and again, then we do kind of get locked into that expectation, of somebody acting a certain way or somebody treating us a certain way. And unfortunately, that can almost rob us of what I would call presence,
Mm-hmm.
of actually being present to how people are acting. Because sometimes, if we expect something, if we're looking for something, the mind is keen and it will find it.
Sure.
So,
Yep.
so the point I kind of want to make is maybe to look for different things. Look for evidence of love. Look for ways you can be loving if you're not feeling love.
Well, that's. I'm glad you brought that up. And I would say my experiences with certain holidays has been mixed. To be fair, I was brought up and born and raised in Canada, and in Canada, Thanksgiving was in October. And I remember we would often have, when I was a kid, we'd often have a turkey dinner at Thanksgiving. And then we'd have another turkey dinner at Christmas. And that was one aspect of both of those holidays that I absolutely loved, because my mom was a great cook. And I don't know how the hell she did it. She was just awesome. She was able to work her magic in the kitchen. And honestly, I don't remember her being too short with me if I was maybe a bit of a pest or something. Mostly she was pretty decent. So my experience of that aspect of the holidays has always been a positive one. And so today, I mean, I really love Thanksgiving. I love that idea of getting together with family and friends and sharing what we're grateful for and all that kind of stuff, and just being heart connected with people. I think where I found some of the less pleasant aspects was, um, I didn't like the whole gift giving thing. It seemed like such a contrived exercise. Even when I was a kid, I didn't really like it that much. What do you want for Christmas? And you get to make this big long list. I'm thinking, what is this for? Why am I doing this? I mean, what I really want is that one thing right there. But when you make a big list like this, then you can't complain if you get some of it and not necessarily the one you want. So it was, I just really never liked that part of Christmas. And yet, when I grew up, got married, and had kids, I kind of had to, well, I felt, now this is where the expectation comes in. I kind of felt that I had to do the same thing for my kids, and create that magical experience for them. Like, I mean, there are places on this planet where people don't really celebrate that holiday, and they seem to get along fine. Anyway, like I said, it was mixed, and I agree with you, Christy. I think we got to, as we get older and we start looking back and maybe having this sense of impending doom on any holiday that's approaching. And as I described in the write-up, it's like, approaching a tidal wave in a rowboat, and you're worried, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? It's meant to be an adventure on one sense. And if you approach that tidal wave with just the right angle, you can make it over, no problem. So it's not so much that the tidal wave is going to sweep you under as you can rise above it. And that's really what we're here to talk about today, is figuring out how to rise above it. So you started it, Christy. Bring us in. Oh, Monica just commented, me too. I wanted to feel the same joy that I remember seeing in my mom's face as she watched me open gifts. Yeah, that's a good point. I like that aspect. When I watch my kids, their faces light up. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things, like as an empath or as someone that feels other people's emotions, one of the things that really kind of helped to set me free in that regard, and a lot of times when we're empaths, or when we're, kind of that emotive kind of sensitive being, we're not always taught how to be. We're not always taught that it's okay to be that way, especially if we're in a family of people that are not that way.
Or that they don't know how to express their emotions in a healthy way.
Right. So the thing that was freeing for me was to realize that, or to kind of see more of a spiritual awareness. And I'm evolving. We're all evolving. So I'm not saying I've got this all down pat. I'm just emerging with this awareness that, we all are spiritual beings having a human experience. And if we have trauma, if we have anger, if we have any kind of denser emotion that's not love, we may not be aware of it, but that may be our soul journey to deal with that. So I started to see that if other people are feeling these feelings and they're either not ready to deal with them, or they're not even aware of them swirling around them, then it's almost overstepping my bounds to get into their stuff and to even feel this stuff. If they're not going to feel it, if they're not going to take care of it, why should I? Exactly. So I think for anyone that's an empath, it's important to get in your space of peace, of joy, of love, and just hold that course. Hold your rowboat, on that course of steady, calm and steady. Let the, S storm swirl around you. And it's not your responsibility. Your only responsibility is to helm your own ship. And that has been life-changing for me. And also, as I said, maybe coming to a situation expecting a certain person to either say something nasty to me, or, do something, and just, letting that happen without letting it affect me, affect my vibe.
Right. Yeah. Sarah, did you want to chime in on that?
Oh, absolutely. I would like to go back to a point you made about the Christmas present list. I don't think we ever were actually asked to do that. My parents didn't have a lot of money. There were 3 kids, them, and both lots of grandparents, and and then it was the most important thing for them was the schooling that we had, and the family time together. But we were all unique characters, and so we should be, and so it didn't always gel well. Somebody ended up by getting upset, getting into trouble, being told to leave the table and not bother to come back, until they could behave themselves. Those type of things happen within families, and it wasn't always the same individual that ended up by that happening to. And I think we've actually, although the parents still buy their children Christmas presents, as a bigger family, we've said no to presents. We don't do them. So the little families within, because the family's got so huge, I've got 5 nieces and nephews and 9 great nieces and nephews. So with the family having got so much bigger, The little families do their own little thing within them.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I don't have children, so that the grandparents, if they choose to do for them, but we don't do for each other, because it's what time can we give to each other? If not
Right.
at the holiday period, through the rest of the year. But when
Exactly.
you are so you take a load of pressure off, because you're taking financial pressure off.
Right.
And I think
I,
that's a really important thing today.
right. I think
Is
that's a beautiful thing, and I would take it a step further. Um, I Here's what I know I like. When I receive a gift from someone and I'm not expecting it, that then feels like it's really coming from that person's heart. And I especially like things that are just homemade, something like a poem or a piece of artwork or some music or something that you created and you want to share it with me. That is what touches me more than hell. I don't care about the even the many $1,000 gift. That's really okay. It's nice. I like to have it, but that's not really what's going to touch me. So I think that you've got a really, really good point there. And I want everyone to be aware of that. This idea that you can make Christmas or whatever holiday you choose to call it, you can make it an all year round kind of thing where every once in a while you just think of somebody. Oh, today I'm thinking of Christy and I want to give her this. And I want to let her know that I was thinking about her. That's really what that's about, more than anything else. Whereas if we all have to do it at the same time of the year and at a particular time of day in a particular time of year, that's just theater. That's all that is. So anyway, that's my opinion. Now,
And
Christy, I want to
that's,
come back to something that you were talking about. You talked about this idea of empathizing, and I think that's something that's really important. I know that as kids, we tend to be much more empathetic when we're younger than when we get older. Sometimes we shut that little tool down or whatever. So for those of us who are still young enough to remember, how do you recommend people learn how to separate their own feelings from what's swirling around them instead of taking that stuff on and saying, oh, I'm feeling this way because there's something wrong with me or something like that?
yeah. So, kind of like I mentioned in the intro, where, there's been days that I've felt sad, and I like look at what's happening in my life and I say, okay, so is there a reason that I'm feeling sad? If there's not, then I know it's coming externally. And in those cases, as part of my soul empowerment, I'll say to, the universe, God, source, whatever you want to call the power that I feel is over us, or you may feel as well. This is too much, back it down a little bit, too much.
Can you turn it down from 11?
Yeah, turn it down. But I think the other thing is this is kind of like a visual. I think most people who are empaths, the only way they know to be is a sponge. They just feel it, they take it. Instead of being a sponge, again, you have to have the presence and do some internal work to get to the point of having inner peace. As long as you can get to a point of inner peace, and that's the work I help people with, then you go from sponge to lighthouse. So, all this stuff is going on around you. It's not yours. You just get in that peace and you start radiating that peace and love out. So
Nice.
instead of being like this, you're like this.
Right.
And I did want to mention something that came up when Sarah was talking, and I'm not sure who it was that talked about, all the food that you've got to cook and stuff. I think it's important for people to, 2 points. One, if you're going to dinner at someone's house, offer to bring some food. I think it's grossly inconsiderate for people to just expect the host to cover all of the expenses. Maybe this was done historically, but at least offer. And then also, I think, as the host or hostess, to ask for help if you need help. Ask people to bring a dish or something. We need to take care of one another. So, don't, it's funny. I heard an ad and I just remembered it. Heard an ad on the radio, etiquette for Thanksgiving. And the woman said, don't show up with your to-go containers.
Yeah.
No. Be
Yeah, right.
considerate of, how much things cost these days. A lot of
That's right.
people are having financial trouble.
I think that's a beautiful reminder. And one way I think that it's easy to kind of slough it off and make the responsibility uh, onto the host by saying something like, would you like me to bring something? Because invariably they're going to say, no, I got it all covered. Instead, rephrase it and say, I'd really like to help. I'd like to bring something. What can I make as a side dish or something that will fit in with your menu? When you say it that way, it's harder for them to say, oh, don't bother. I mean, they might
Right.
still do that.
Or
But it
like,
makes
would
it
you like
easier.
me to bring a charcuterie board or dessert?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe something that's not going to, jump into their
Right.
meal if
Yeah.
they have a
Yeah.
plan.
I like that idea. And remember, we have to help the host find a way to say yes to our desire to help. That's the key. And so if you have a particular thing in mind that you'd like to bring, say it. I have this really great recipe for I don't know, beans and mushrooms. Would that work with your dinner tonight or whatever? And just let them say yes, that would work. That's what I suggest.
I've got to chip in because, all right, not as a child, because obviously mum did do it. Mind you, having said that, obviously the grandparents lived in the same house. They tended to, and then dad would go and get the other grandparents who weren't that far away but didn't drive. So back then it was mostly mum that did it all. But actually over the last 25 years, certainly, yes, since I've lived where I live in Bournemouth, and the group of friends that I met, we never ever expect one person to do everything. We all have our signature dishes, things that we do and that we take. And so when somebody says, right, it's a get together at my place, it's right, who's bringing what? There's no shall I bring, it's who's bringing what. It's that simple.
That's right.
With our Christmas dinner, sort of, which is not that far off, sort of, I've already been saying to my sister, because it's going to be done over at my sister's, I've already been saying to her, right, what am I bringing Christmas Day? What am I bringing Boxing Day? And we've got that sorted out, that I am taking. And I don't go over there and just sit and do nothing, because I tend to be in the kitchen with her.
Right.
Especially as mum's got older and mum can't be, and sort of encouragement of the youngsters. Obviously, I know they've got young children, but one of these days they're going to be doing it all.
That's right.
And
Well, I
they
think
will
that,
then learn how much hard work it was. So
right.
yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter whether it's a birthday celebration, just a get together. Actually, when everybody chips in, it makes it so much easier to do it more often,
And it's
because
fun too.
it's
Yeah.
not a massive expense. It's just a matter of whether you've got a place big enough to do it.
Right. Christy, I saw you were about to say something.
No.
Oh, you look like you were ready to burst with something really brilliant.
But I'd also like to add that yes, absolutely, the empathy, and sort of, I've got to the stage where I try not to let other people stuff. I'm not that sponge anymore. I'm not that people pleaser anymore. I don't take on other people's stuff and think I've got to please everybody anymore. It's just like, there are my boundaries. And I
Right.
sit a lot and listen. And I listen to my own family. Don't get me wrong, I love my family. But I watch the old behaviors. everybody is so desperate to be heard, they don't listen to anybody else. It's,
Right.
oh, interrupt, interrupt, interrupt. Nobody gets to finish saying anything that they're saying. And so these days, I don't tend to say very much at all.
Right. Well, I
But
think what we're talking about here is, oh, okay, we're talking about holidays. So probably most of us are also talking about family. Now, and that's really all about relationships. And there's all kinds of old history in our families. You know, you may have had a tiff with your brother or your sister years back that, you know, has never really been healed. There may have been other issues that have gone on in your family. Maybe, as I mentioned in the write up, you have that uncle who smells funny and is a little too touchy feely for your taste. You know, we all have those quirky people in our families. And so the question is, how can we elevate ourselves to keep in that space of love and acceptance and still honor our boundaries? I think that's really what we're talking about here. And the other side of it is, even though this is mostly about holidays and families, there may be non-family members who come into your sphere during the holidays as well. And they may also be in some way disruptive to your inner peace. So the question is, how do we deal with all of those things?
my suggestion personally is be as relaxed as you can be. You know, try and let go of, okay, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Don't let your mind go off into, oh my God, what's going to happen today? Because it is all mind stuff. It's that self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you concentrate on the fact, as one of you said, it's you start looking for that thing that you expect to go wrong. Try and stop your mind from looking for it. And try and get yourself into that space of looking for. It's great to see the smiles on everybody's faces. Yeah, the happy children. I'm just a lover of peace and quiet these days. And with young children running around, there's not a lot of that. So it's something I've got to think about this year, is because I have my special friend that I share a house with, whose health, earlier this year, he was given a diagnosis that said to him that he probably had 6 months to live. Well, he's gone past the 6 months. And let's put it this way, if he is determined that he's going to prove them wrong, but boy, he has had a major diagnosis that is a real health problem. And he's been invited to join the family, and he's said no, because as a child, he had pneumonia. And therefore, a whole load of kids with colds and whatever, it's not going to do his health any good. So he said no. So I've got my 85-year-old mother who's going to be at my sister's, and all the rest of the family. And then I've got Trevor who will be here at home. And so I've got, my boundary is, I am going to spend time there and here. It won't be all my time there. And the truth be told, as much as I love my family, I will look forward to coming home to the peace and quiet.
Right.
But that's a boundary. What are your boundaries? Is it that when you get together with the family, and unless you are literally staying in the house and cannot get out, then that's obviously a very different one. But make the space for yourself. Go for a walk. Give yourself a chance to breathe. And try and help yourself not to bite when some things are said or things are done in a way you wouldn't do them. It's
Right.
not easy, but if it's at your home, then you expect people to do things your way. It's your home, they're your boundaries. But if you're somebody else's home, it's honoring what's right for them in their own home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all of us learning that, every single one of us. And it's not easy to get to that space. You know, sort of 23, 24, 25 years of working on me. so if you're only just starting, be patient with yourself.
Right.
Start with the patience and love of yourself. And if it means removing yourself to keep your relaxed space and you in comfort and you calm, then do it. It's not that you don't love them. It's that maybe it is better not to have them all together, because I love having my family in their little bits. But oh my God, getting the lot together is so much of a racket.
Right.
I feel like my internet is a little bit unstable right now.
Well, you're here. We can hear you.
Okay. I have a comical guide that says, read the room and stay in your lane.
Read the room and stay in your lane. Yeah. So that's
And
really about boundaries too, isn't it?
yeah. And I think also, a point you made earlier, Sarah, is about being a people pleaser. It's nearly impossible to please other people because some people cannot be pleased.
Right. Well, it's like the old adage about, you can fool some of the people some of the time, and you can fool all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And the same thing is true for pleasing people. You know, if you're going to please someone, don't do it just because you are trying to gain their approval. Do it because it's really coming from a place of love and you just want to share how you feel about them. That's really what we're talking about here, is being authentic, being real, being genuine, and not caving in to the stories of your ego mind and trying to seek out approval in order to get someone to say nice things about you, or to treat you in a way that you imagine they have to treat you. Right. We have to be honest, we have to be open, we have to be authentic. And if we can't do that, then we're kind of wasting our time, really.
And it's also accepting the fact, isn't it, that people have their own issues. People are going through stuff, and they don't necessarily share what that stuff is with you.
Exactly right.
They are, oops, they are they may be in a bad place, but they feel they need to be there. They should be there. That expected of them. And it's how so many people come away with bugs after Christmas, because people have got together that potentially shouldn't have done. They should have taken the day and just relaxed and stayed in bed. But they're trying to sort of please everybody, and it's not necessarily pleasing themselves.
That's right.
And it is a very difficult one, because it's almost as around a holiday is as if it is expected for everybody to get together. And in lockdown that we had, they couldn't. There was an excuse because it was made by the government that you couldn't get together, sort of. But also, it is important to be with our families and to stay connected with our families. And it's finding the ways that work for each of us, isn't it?
Right. Well, I think it's important what you just said about the fact that everyone has issues, and not everybody goes or deals with or heals their issues in the same way or in the same time frame. In fact, a lot of people, and I will include myself in this list, tend to ignore their issues until they really don't have any choice anymore to pay attention to them. So we're going to be engaging with people at different levels um, of personal healing, of personal growth, and even of personal awareness. So if we can keep ourselves, as you mentioned earlier, Sarah, being patient and loving towards ourselves, then perhaps it becomes easier for us to extend that same patience and love to the other people that we're dealing with.
I'd like to share that an awareness, just that when people are acting out or being, quote unquote mean, if you will, usually it's because they're in pain of some sort.
Right.
Physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, whatever that is. So to learn to not take it personally when someone else is acting out. Because as you say, we're all at different places. And it can almost be a little bit narcissistic to think everything is about us. It's not.
Well, I completely disagree with that statement, Christy. I think everything is about me.
Okay.
I think it's about hurt people hurt people.
Yeah, that's true.
And if somebody's in that, why are they in it? And it's that being able to step back and be able to say, okay. And what one of the things you put on there was communication skills. Can you support them with being able to communicate them, not on the same level that they're at,
Right.
but maybe they just haven't been heard, and they're hurting because nobody appears to be listening. So is it possible that your communication skill is just a matter of hopefully getting them on one side and saying, I'm listening?
Right.
I'm
Yep.
getting an image of, that lion with the splinter in their paw. Like if you can see the other person who's, either acting out or ignoring you. Sometimes people that ignore another one, they feel insecure. So, rather than getting upset about it, if you can be, approach that person and talk to them. Another point I wanted to bring up, this is kind of jumping back just a little bit about boundaries, is perhaps you don't go and stay for 3 hours. You go for dessert, or you go for coffee and aren't there for the 6-hour fiasco. You have to really take care of yourself, and make the situation so that you're going to be not only comfortable yourself, but bringing your best to the situation.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to stay for the whole fiasco. I like that. In fact, wouldn't the invitation be great if it said, please come to our fiasco? The holiday fiasco with the McLeods. Come on out. Like,
Peace is
why not,
welcome.
have some fun with it, yeah, there's going to be some topsy-turvy moments. There's going to be some love. There's going to be some joy. There might even be a few arguments, but you know what? We all love each other, and that's really the main thing that we have to deal with. And when I said I think it's all about me, what I really mean to say is I can't say anything about you, because if I do, that's just my projection. It is my imagination. It's my story. I simply interpret things, and I can give you some feedback, but that feedback is all about me. And if you tell me something, I still am going to have some level of interpretation even added to what you've told me. So there's going to be a part of my own stuff that gets mixed in with what you're sharing with me. And so I have to remember that anything that I say to you about you is really about me, and it might just be partly true for you as well. This is the secret, I think, to understanding the power of projection. And projection, I think, is a great tool if we learn how to use it. Because if I can see that I'm projecting something on you, then I can begin to look at what's inside of me that I'm maybe not looking at right now. You see? And that's the power of projection. And where can we get better practice at projection than in a family gathering around the holidays? Because everybody in that group of your family remembers you from the way you were years ago, and they are not afraid to tell you about it.
Yeah, in some cases, I think it's almost like it's a little play and everybody's cast in their roles.
Exactly.
So it can be hard to break out of that role. And, for example, you could say, this is kind of going back to that thing where the mind sees what it thinks it's going to see. I could say to you, Sarah, your hair looks beautiful today. But if you think I'm snarky, you may actually think I'm saying, what the heck did you do to your hair today? So, you can't really control that. You can just show up as love and know in your heart that you're showing up as love, and understand that sometimes your words are not going to be heard as love. And that's beyond your control.
And I think the other thing is you've got to think about the size of the gathering. You talked about sort of somebody was ignoring you, but were they ignoring you? There are so many people. Yeah, I've got a group of about sort of 20 friends. And when we get together in that bigger group, there are times we don't get to speak to everybody. It just doesn't, you just can't. That's why I love the smaller get-togethers, because then you get to speak to everybody. So it's not a matter of anybody's ignoring you. It could just be that there are just so many people there. And if there's one person, like a mother or a father, who's getting on a bit, or very young children that are demanding attention, because it tends to be that expansion of age groups, sort of that you can't get round to everybody, and obviously, as I said, it's going to be over at my sister's. And I will make a point of making sure I'm there to help her in the kitchen. And she's not the one doing all the clearing up afterwards. And so I may be, and when my youngest sister's up, and she's not going to be this year, but when my youngest sister, she will be in the kitchen first and foremost, rather than actually be in the lounge with everybody else, because that's where she's most comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she doesn't want to be with everybody, it's just that I think it's too much. I think if you got our whole family together, it would be over 30 people. And that's just not copable for many people. And you're not going to get round everybody and be able to. So it's being understanding of yourself and accepting the fact that maybe other people aren't ignoring you, that there are others who have just grabbed their attention and they may be struggling to get away from them.
I think that's a good point. Going back to your case of, 20 friends, let's say that there's one friend that you've been wanting to talk to, and not you personally, but, hypothetical. And, you didn't get to talk to them the last few months, and then you start feeling, oh my gosh, they never want to talk to me. That's kind of a human nature kind of thing, to feel like, oh, well, they don't want to talk to me. But if you want to talk to someone, part of being part of this soul empowerment is to say, I really want to talk to her. I'm going to approach her today. So it's more like the wounded one, feels bad about these things. The empowered one goes forth and asks for what they need.
Right. And I think that there's more to it than that. I think if you're in a large gathering and you're not able to have a deep conversation with everyone, well, you can at least go around and say, hey, look, I know you're here, I'm glad you're here, and I would love to have a time to chat with you. As you can see, there's a lot of folks here. I'm going to just wander around a bit. Let's make some time later to chat. Then that person is probably going to be perfectly fine with that. This is called acknowledging the existence of the other person, saying, I'm not ignoring you. I am here. I see you. And I'm the host. I kind of have to get around to everybody. So please don't take it personally if I'm not spending the time with you right now. Okay? That you don't even have to say all those words, but that's essentially what you're saying just by doing that. And if you can go around to every person at your gathering and say that at least one time, then everybody will feel welcome, you know? And later on, as the day or the evening or the afternoon or whatever progresses, you may find that you have more time with each person. And someone might hang on to you for a longer period of time than you anticipated. And so you miss out speaking to somebody else over there. That's just the way it goes, and it's okay. But if you make that first move and just let people know, you can really simmer the waters right then and there.
I must admit, as a family, when sort of somebody sort of turns up, sort of, even if it's sort of, because with Katie, obviously she's going to be in the kitchen, everybody says hi to everybody. We acknowledge everybody the minute we come in the door. They acknowledge us for arriving. That's always been the case, and it's usually sort of everybody gets a hug, sort of, and the same when everybody leaves. Everybody gets a hug when we leave.
Yeah, that's nice.
And so that yes, and those hugs are important. They may just be something very brief, but they are acknowledgement of each other. And yeah, I mean that because yes, as I said, the family's just getting bigger and bigger, and that's without the partner's parents as well, sort of, and siblings. And so it just gets huge. And my sister's husband is one of 5, but actually one of 8, because his father married 3 times. So yes, it's just a massive thing if that whole lot gets together. And it's very difficult to get round to everybody, and it's just accepting that. And that's why I think we've said, right, it's not about Christmas presents. It's about what time can we give to each other and maybe get together in smaller groups throughout the year, so we spread it throughout the year. And we can have quality time with individuals rather than non-quality time with the whole group.
Exactly.
I have a couple of suggestions that people can do to try to get centered when they're in the midst of, maybe there's a conversation that you're uncomfortable with, or, there's a little drama playing out. Look at things in the room that are not, the people. Look at the decorations, actually smell the smells of the food. Bring yourself to presence. Bring yourself to, this moment and senses that can take you out of the story of whatever may be playing out. There's a thing called mudras where you can kind of, put your hands in certain positions. For some people, this is helpful to just, do something with their hands to help kind of occupy that part of the mind that wants to do something or say something.
Yeah, I like that. Those are some great ideas, and I hadn't thought about mudras before, but that's a wonderful idea. I can still be present with you, and at the same time, while my hands are down by my side, and I may be pressing 2 fingers together or something like that, just as a way of, to be unobtrusive, but just as a way to keep myself present. And I think if we can do that, then we can learn to be present with each person that we're speaking to. And as Sarah has said so many times, just open ourselves to listening and being available to whatever it is they want to say to us. That can be very, very powerful, and not only powerful, but empowering to myself and to the other person.
And the other thing that they say is breathe. Just take a deep breath and then let that breath out. Because while you're concentrating on the breathing, you can't be thinking about anything else, because your mind's concentrating on breathing. And sometimes it is just a matter of bringing our minds out of wherever they've gone. And
well, I don't know about you, Sarah, but sometimes I need a reminder to breathe. Because
yes,
I can be in the midst of a conversation and I really am not paying attention to my breath. I mean, I'm breathing automatically, but not consciously. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that's a great idea. And I need to come up with a way to remind myself to take that occasional breath.
But think about it, because while I was thinking, oh, I must mention that. And I found myself taking a deep breath every now and again. We do find ourselves that need to take a deep breath because we've been shallow breathing for too long that we actually haven't got enough oxygen going around our system. And so we
That's
need
true.
to take that deep breath and just allow ourselves to breathe and fill our lungs with oxygen. Because our
And you
body,
can, oh, sorry.
that's okay.
I was just going to say you could have some sort of, pre-approved pre-approved message for yourself. All is well. I am calm. There's only an hour left. Whatever.
Well, there's
Whatever that.
something else that just occurred to
No,
me. I mean, I notice, as we're talking, I sometimes scratch my face or my nose or something like that. I haven't noticed that too much from you folks, but each of us has our own little nervous movements that we tend to do. And what I could tell myself is, oh, Uncle Joe likes to, wiggle his ear. So every time he does that, I'm going to take a deep breath. I could remind myself that way. Or when I'm with my sister, I don't know, what's something that she does? She cocks her head in a funny way or something like that I remember. And when I see that, I'm going to just take it in. So that's another thing that we could do, is just remind ourselves each of the people in our lives have certain little idiosyncrasies or behaviors or something that maybe we get irritated by or we have gotten irritated by in the past. We'll use that as a reminder to just take a deep breath.
right. Just celebrate it, right?
Yeah.
Celebrate it with a breath that I'm alive, I'm well, I'm peace, I'm connected.
Yeah, it's nice. And constant reminder to self, I am alive, I am at peace, I am love. Beautiful.
Yeah. And as much as I'm loving this conversation, I've got to go, folks.
Yeah. Well, I was going to close her down anyway. So, Sarah, are there any words you'd like to share just to close out before you leave?
Just love yourself enough that what's the saying? If respect is no longer being served at the table, it's time to leave the table. And I mean that. It may be family, it may be friends, but if actually they are making you uncomfortable, well, why are they making you uncomfortable? And why are you letting them get at you that way? But actually, if there's a decided lack of respect, then have the respect for yourself. Love them as much as you want to, as much as you need to, but love yourself. And actually, when you love yourself enough, you can bring the love to others.
Right. Yeah.
And you can accept the fact that they are who they are, they are the way they are. And you give yourself a limited amount of time with them so that you're not getting stressed out. And then you give yourself permission to leave. And that's really important. And it's if you're home, you give yourself permission to say, it's time for you all to go.
Thank you all for being here. The bar is closed.
Yes, exactly. The bar's closed. I'm off. But thank you for so much. It's been a real pleasure. And I will see you again soon. Bye.
Happy holidays to you.
Hi, Sarah.
Bye.
What about you, Christy? Do you have some final words you'd like to share?
I think probably the biggest one is, instead of getting hung up on presents, presents, bring your presence. Be present to what it is you're looking at. Are you looking for love, or are you looking for, the things that upset you? And shift your focus to something else. Yes, definitely. If there's not respect there, don't subject yourself to things that are not going to get better. I know personally I've been I've been entrenched in what could be in relationships, and that's the opposite of presence, really.
Yeah.
So breathe, use the mudras, be the lighthouse.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can't add much more to that, but I want to just say thanks to everybody for watching this, and to pick up other episodes if you like at my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. And I also want to just say, remember that the tidal wave is just an imaginary tidal wave. You can still navigate your way through it because you have the capability, you have the power of your soul to guide you from a place of love and peace. And with that, I want to wish you happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever other holiday you happen to celebrate. I just want you to remember that you are love and you are loved.